Okay, let's call to order the Design and Review Board regular meeting for Monday, September 21st, 2020. Let's do roll call. I don't think we need an appointment of alternates. I'm Steve Antonio. I'm here. Polly, Anka, Katie, why don't you guys just say your name?
Polly Rice.
Anka Gragulski.
Kate Beal.
All right. So we have a quorum. So let's get right into our first and only application today. It's application number ZC20-09 of Mark and Nika Scully. It's regarding a site plan approval to install solar carports at the property located at 690 Hop Meadow Street. Did I hear someone's here to present on behalf of Mark and Nika?
James Dean is here. James is the solar installer, and James, I think, is available if there's any questions that get into a level of detail that we can't answer.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review this, or do we need a few minutes? Did everyone find it on the internet?
I reviewed.
Okay. Anka, you were able to see it?
Yeah, I looked over it too. Yes, yes.
Okay, Mark, do you want to just give us a quick overview of what you're doing? I think we know, but just in your own words, what you're hoping to achieve here tonight?
Yes, thank you. I'd be pleased to. I recall, presenting before this group before, and I think at that time we would have shared that, our vision and our passion for this building is part because of its beautiful historic character, but part also the desire to restore it in a way that is sustainable and promotes energy efficiency. And so this is the next step for us. Having restored the place, doing as much as we can in terms of energy efficiency and not using fossil fuels, basically replacing the heating and cooling system with an all-electric system. We'd like to now generate electricity on site. And we've looked at various places where we could put that on site, and most of them are obviously off limits. Of course, the whole front lawn you wouldn't ever even think of. On the historic building itself would never be allowed, and it's not really suitable. So the options really got pretty quickly to using the parking space, using the parking lots. And so together with Jim, we've designed 2 solar canopies that would cover a portion of the parking spaces on site. We feel that there are certain advantages, several advantages to these spaces. First of all, it doesn't really block any views of the building, and it's barely visible from the street. It does provide covered parking, so protection from the elements. And we're fortunate in that, as you probably know, the property slopes away from the building. So this is not a structure that would tower over the Ensign House. It would rather be something looking down at, looking straight across at from the courtyard or from the restaurant. So we would be producing a good portion of electricity used on site. So we think, the environmental benefits of that, speak for themselves. And we feel fortunate that there is a site, there is a place that we can do this that really doesn't detract from the historic or the aesthetic character. One of the carports, the smaller one, is quite it's along the southern edge of the property, and it covers a row of parking spaces there. And to optimize that position so that we could cover those parking spaces without the panels sticking out to where the garbage trucks come down to the dumpster, we went before Zoning Board of Appeal, and they gave us a variance, essentially to let those panels get a little closer to the property line than would normally be allowed. We met with Dyno Nobel, and they were fine, and they actually wrote a letter on our behalf. They're fine with the panels being positioned there. And as you know, there's a big buffer between Ensign Bickford and us. But we think this is a pretty optimal location. I'm really excited about the idea, not just of producing solar, but actually showing an example of a solar carport, that they are a little more expensive to build than putting it on top of a roof. but they have other benefits that, this is parking, it's a parking lot. It's not an agricultural land or a forest, and we're not degrading any property. We're not really, there's no material effect on water runoff or erosion. So we like to think of it as an example as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. I was looking at the description at the point where it says both carports will be built to high aesthetic standards, including painted structures, stone-faced footings, and translucent bifacial solar panels. So the two pictures showing what the structures will maybe look like don't show the footings. And I would like to see a rendering of what it will actually look like from, like, if you drive into the restaurant and you go to the parking area. They look, from the view I have, I mean, I don't know if you can tell that from, I'm looking on my phone. They look, they look very imposing and overpowering, because I'm sure that's the view from, like maybe laying down in the parking lot. And that is just, they look horrendous, to be blunt. But I'm sure they will not be as, overpowering coming up from the street. But again, it does not show what the footings will look like. When you say that they'll be stone-faced, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like I said, again, like to see what they will actually look like as like a street view coming up when you arrive at the restaurant.
Right. The pictures are really just to show you what an example of what one of these structures, as you said, as you're looking up. In particular, these panels they're these bifacial, so the light actually does come through them somewhat. So it's not entirely dark underneath there, and they're bifacial because the sun then might reflect off of a car and then actually produce electricity from the underside. And in terms of, we don't have any renderings at this point, at least none that show the slope of that actually reflect the slope of the property. But there will be concrete footings on the ground, and our plan is to face those probably with some brownstone that we have that matches matches the inside of the house. Okay,
that's fine, but. These pictures make it look like I'm in the Star Wars movie or something. So I'm not a big fan at this point, because the building that you've remodeled is amazing and beautiful. And you come up to the building on the right and you see these on the left. And it's just right now, I can't even imagine them together on the same property. And that's because I love Simsbury. So, it's my 2 cents.
Mark, have you and Ika considered cloaking these? Well, how high are the footings, first off? Are we talking like at grade or 3 feet above grade, or whereabouts do you see these footings as far as elevation or height?
Jim, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So the footings are primarily in the ground, so you don't really see, I'd say 95% of the actual footing. What you will see is about 30 inches coming out of the ground. That each post is about 12 inches by 12 inches, and just to protect that metal post from a car, say, hitting it, you typically want to protect the first 30 inches, just in case a bumper hits it, that kind of thing. Mark came up with the idea of putting brownstone over that little portion of cement just to make it look a little more attractive. So that's, and so you really just have to envision something in the neighborhood of 24 inches in diameter surrounding a 12-inch in diameter post is the best way to just envision it. And again, about 30 inches tall. And again, then that's also just to protect the post from physical damage, because you wouldn't want to hit it with a car. And the other thing is, too, the rendering that you guys saw was a Y-shape carport, and that will have a tendency to look a little bit more industrial than what Mark is approaching. Really, what you need to look at on that carport is the minute details around each panel, meaning you can't see any of the edges of the panel because they create a physical structure around each one, so nominal rain doesn't fall through, that kind of thing. It just makes it's a much more attractive than the traditional carport that you would see. So it is a very attractive product when you see it up close. Just
is there a picture?
Again, that picture was a little bit more industrial in look.
Is there an online image that we could share? Or, I mean, you're speaking a lot about imagining. There also looks like, to be honest, from the top, the site plan or top view, however you want to call it, it looks like there's plantings, but I can't really make out what sort of component that has. DRB, our main purview is that, I mean, not to oversimplify it, but we're mostly concerned with aesthetics and how it fits in with the neighborhood to protect your neighbor's investment, just like we would protect yours, to make sure it has street appeal. And I got to be honest, those few pictures that you gave us that you say aren't applicable are very industrial, for lack of a different term. Is there some way we could see what you are envisioning, even if I went online now?
Jim, do you have any pictures that are closer to what we're going to build?
I would say, no, I don't. The rendering or the actual physical pictures that you did see, again, I would go back to that's the style of structure that we're going to be using. The biggest variance is the size of the beams and posts are going to be smaller because he's using just because he's not using one central post to support the entire thing. They refer to it as a tabletop design, so the posts and the columns supporting it are much smaller, and I would hope would lend to a little bit more of an attractive nature.
I do have some renderings that were provided to me very early in the process. So the position of the carports is not where we've ended up putting them. I'm happy to show you those because I think it may give you a bit of a sense of what it doesn't do. As I mentioned before, the software that they use doesn't reflect the slope of the land. So it doesn't reflect the fact that they will actually be lower, but I'm happy to show you these if you'd like to see them. Am I able to share my screen?
Mark, why don't you email them to me so we can put them in the record if you have a digital copy?
Let's see how big they are.
Is it just in light of all the conversation, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it aesthetically in terms of solar panels are solar panels and they are a modern aesthetic. And sometimes I mean, I've seen that blend acceptably well, so I'm not specifically concerned, but is it cost prohibitive or anything like that to do? Like I've seen ones that look more like a pergola or something like that. Is it cost prohibitive to do that, or maintenance wise not appropriate versus, and it would take on like more of the aesthetic like the front porch of the building has, like the front area, eating area? Or is there a reason that it can't be done that way?
I'm just sending this picture.
So, Kate, what you're saying is to add some kind of features to the, like, say, the edging of the solar panel roof to make it look less industrial and have more of a softening to it.
Well, like what we're looking at looks like kind of the stock solar panels. Like that's what you would get, you know, if you were getting some basic solar panels to put up. But I've seen examples of them before where they're a little bit more architectural, so that the structure kind of is more unique or specific. And I don't know if there's, you know, if it's like cost prohibitive to do that, and so someone just did that to look really cool, or if that's something that just hasn't been considered. And I've seen it where there's like wood structure, like a post and beam kind of structure with the solar panels on top versus like the steel that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think I can answer that. Well, one is it's exceedingly difficult to use to mix wood and solar, just from engineering standpoints. Everything has to be designed to handle wind loads, snow loads, and so it's, and you can't have any deflection in it because you're using a glass medium. So it's really, it's not really something you're typically going to see, especially if it's a permitted project. But I do think I would encourage you to go back and look at that original picture, because some of the details that you might just skim over casually. One is the typical carport. If you're looking up at it, you're going to see wiring. You're going to see all the junction boxes of the panels. You're going to see all that wiring connecting from one panel to the next. And that's actually why we chose this product. It's a little more expensive than everybody else's, but the aesthetic advantages are that there's a guttering system or a physical structure that supports every edge of the panel, and all the wire management, all the wires, that none of that is visible from the ground. So it's a very clean look. And the bifacial panel has another aesthetic where you just don't see like a white back sheet. So you're not staring up at this white ceiling. You'll see the crystals, and they actually have a more attractive look than not, and you can see a little bit of nominal light filtering through. So it's also not extremely dark when you walk under one of these canopies, because you do get 15% natural light filtering through. So it's more like walking under a shade tree than walking under a very dark carport shelf, if you will. I don't know if that helps you.
How about the color of the steel? I know you said it would be painted. Have you talked about that at all? Because that can make a big difference in how it looks as well, like how industrial looks versus having more of a industrial in the train station Simsbury kind of way versus like just straight up industrial, you know?
Yeah, so the panel, the color of a crystal is really a very dark blue. You could casually walk back and by, and maybe you would think it's black, but when you see light penetrating, you'll realize it's just a nice dark shade of blue. But the steel and aluminum structure that we'll call it the superstructure that holds the panels, that can be painted any color under the sun. So whatever everybody decides, that's what you can choose.
How's this help?
So this is, as I mentioned, this is not the position of the panels. This was a very early rendering, and it doesn't show how much lower they'll be than the building itself, because there really is quite a drop off there. But and it's a different design of the actual tabletop of the design. But this, I don't know if this helps, if this gives you any better of an understanding.
No, this helps a ton, because the other ones looked overwhelming to the property. This color scheme, I think, makes it lighter and less imposing to the property. Those are my two thoughts immediately.
Great.
And this is also that rendering is showing a non-bifacial panel, so that's gonna give it a slightly darker. This rendering would be a slightly darker than what we're proposing, because a little bit of light filtering through, it's actually quite attractive relative to a very dark canopy.
The canopy on the left in this picture actually is pretty close to what we ended up with, except it's a little further up. We didn't want to block views from the restaurant, from the banquet space, so we're not putting anything on the upper tier there. It's not as long. It's not as long.
And Mark, the other thing with this rendering, it doesn't take into effect the grades.
Right.
Because that where those white cars are in the middle in the Land Rover, that's kind of a pocket in there, because that was, if Ika, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the garden at one time before it was converted to the church. And because of that, some of those grades were retained when they laid out the parking lot. So that area of the parking lot kind of sits in a lower spot compared to the rest of the parking lot.
There's a steep hill of grasses that are on the edge there. So you're below solar panel structure itself will be like halfway above that steep hill.
Yeah, this actually shows those panels sort of equal to the level of the annex. Whereas if you're in that banquet space at the restaurant looking out, you'll be looking above the panels, and that they won't be.
You won't be looking under it.
Yeah.
Right. And just to follow up on my comment, that the structure that's in the center of the parking, where I said in that pocket, really, because of the grades, interior of the site, it's very limited impact to the visual landscape.
Yeah.
What about the beams? These are totally different columns than are on the first sheet. These look boxed in. I mean, what are you proposing? Are these them, or is the girder beams vertical them, or I got to be honest, I'm pretty confused by this proposal. Not that I don't want it to go forward. I think it's a great idea and asset, and we're definitely on board as far as bringing it to fruition. I'm just confused as to what's being presented. Are these the columns that are being shown in white that are boxed in some fashion, or is it the blue girder beams, for lack of a better term, that's being proposed tonight?
The beams are rectangular, like you're seeing in this picture. It's not like I think you're kind of maybe possibly envisioning something like an I-beam.
Yeah, that's what's shown on the actual proposal you gave us, is an I-beam. So these are different. This is the first time we're seeing these boxed out beams, or maybe they're hollow, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
So just for clarification, this is the column.
This is the material you're proposing.
Okay, well, that makes a big difference to me.
The pictures in the proposal are just... They turned me totally, against the idea of all this, but the picture of the rendering is much more aesthetically pleasing. So I'm not sure why you submitted those other pictures at all. They don't add any value to me to this proposal.
No, I got to be honest, those are a worst case scenario. And fortunately, you had this rendering to share with us, because this, to me, is a best case scenario. So, I mean, I just definitely, this is much more palatable to me. I see where you're going with it. As far as runoff from the roof, the larger structure in the middle of the parking lot, how's that going to be handled? Is that just, there's got to be is it just a drip cap, or do you have a gutter system that takes it underground? How will that affect us visually?
Yeah, there's a gutter system that takes it underground.
Okay,
that's part of the structure that hides all the edges of the panels. Acts as a guttering system, and because of the pitch of the land, it goes directly. I think Mark's about to show you where the gutter is physically on the property.
Okay, and the gutter, is it a classic K style? What type of gutter is it? Or is it integrated?
It's integrated.
Okay. Anka, what do you got to say? We haven't even heard from you yet.
Well, I was listening quietly here. I definitely commend the idea of producing solar energy, using solar panels on the property, and I fully support it, just like everyone else. And at the same time, I do agree with what has been said regarding the aesthetics of these panels. They look very industrial, as we all said. It's a different story. They don't really match the old structure, the old house. Yes, I like the rendering. Now, when it comes to that rendering, I'm hoping that, again, it's my suggestion, my idea, my view of it. It will not be as white as it is presented. The way at least I envision it to match a little bit better the house, I hope those posts will be painted a darker color, darker brown, to look more like wood, more like a post and beam structure. And you mentioned brownstone bases for those posts. So just to blend the structure a little bit better with the rest of the property. Now, for us, for the pedestrian, let's say, or driving around the property, aesthetically, this might not be such a big issue because these carports look to me like they are further back. So they can be eventually hidden by vegetation, or, we will not going to see them very much. But you guys have to be very careful because the way they look, these carports, they might affect you, and you might, at the end of the day, really dislike them. So I would suggest, if you can visit places where this kind of solar panels have been installed in different configurations, it might be good to see them on site, how they really, really look like. And how, the solar panel itself, it's a solar panel, that's it. But then the way it's installed, the framing and everything around it, probably it can be tweaked, depending on the building, on the property. So I would strongly encourage you to, if possible, to visit places where these have been installed and see exactly what you're getting. Because at the end of the day, if they don't look good, it will mainly affect you, And so, yeah.
Does the commission have enough information, or do you want revised cut sheets that kind of show, what you just saw, along with how the treatment will be for the footings? So that maybe that would the commission feel a little more comfortable with this if you had that, or do you feel you have enough information for this evening?
Include paint colors on what the metal pieces, because I like Anka's idea of making them more look like, the darker trim of the building. So they blend instead of look stark white against, the landscape. If they blend more in with the colors of the building, then they'd be more apt to be aesthetically pleasing. So yes, I agree with that idea.
That's a really easy thing to do. We can paint it dark brown. That's what we have to do with the pergola too. That's really easy to do. I think that first picture, where Polly says you're laying down on the ground looking up. The main reason for that picture was to show you the solar panel, not necessarily the structure. Okay. It was to show you the effect of the light coming through, and the underside not being full of wires and stuff.
Made me feel like I was at the dentist,
Yeah, but that's what we were. It was to look at the underside and the effect of the light coming through, not necessarily the structure. We were so focused on showing you what the panel would look like, and that was an example of a picture with that panel.
Okay.
The light coming through. So
and your lighting, you're going to put lights under.
Go ahead, Kate.
Lights underneath too for like at night and everything, of course.
Yes.
It can be mounted on the panel itself.
And I just want to say I totally agree with Anka's comments, because I've seen quite a few of these carports, and some are hideous, I think. There are quite a few of them over at Simsbury in Bloomfield. I've traveled down to the Jewish Community Center in North Haven. I've taken pictures of a bunch of them, and some of them are quite attractive. And I want to say that's one of the reasons that we're working with Jim, is that, as you said, the design that we picked is more expensive. It is a no wires, and it is you don't see the edges of the panels. And from everything we've seen, it's going to be a much more aesthetically pleasing design, because I think you can do these wrong.
I'm sure you'll do a very good job. You did so far, and you're not going to ruin everything now at the very end. Yeah. I think, as I said, the way they look, they will affect mainly you, not too much the town, because probably will not see them very easily from the road. Yeah.
What you did show us of the canopy was important. It wasn't a frustrated exercise, because the canopy to me, and I don't feel anyone is talking about the canopy. I think most of our concern arises from the columns, which is a lot of imagination. I have to be honest, I think we might need more information, because we're supposed to imagine a 24-inch diameter, I'm not sure if that's a square or a circle, coming up approximately 30 inches, possibly made out of redstone, to a column that is boxed out that is going to be, from what I understood from Polly, a red sandstone type color. I don't know if we have enough. Usually design and review, we ask for samples, which I know we can't have because obviously we're doing it via Zoom. But we do meet in 14 days again, and we might be able, just to be frank, to have a rendering that's a little bit easier for us to actually pass, instead of all of us having the image we create within our own minds are not necessarily synced with what you're envisioning. I love the rendering. I'll be honest. That second rendering that you brought forward looks good, but even that doesn't have the redstone footings on it. So I feel, Mike, where do you stand?
Well, I mean, judging by the comments of the commission, it kind of sounds like you got 3 different versions of what's before you. Everyone's getting, if you like what you said, everyone's using their imagination to try to fill in the blanks. So, I would recommend that it's pretty clear what information you need. You need a cut sheet showing the treatment of the footings. You want to know the paint type that's going to treat the columns, because there's been a discussion on whether light versus darker colors will look appropriate. I think with the topography and the vegetation, I agree with Polly's comment. The darker colors, maybe something similar to the building, will blend into the landscape. That's a lot of information to conditionally approve. I would ask that you get that information of the applicant before you make that take an action on this. And like you said, we meet in 2 weeks. You're not asking a lot. No,
I think we're leaning towards, we all want to see it come to fruition.
But also what I heard from the commission, and just correct me if I'm wrong, for the applicant's assurance, everyone seems to support the concept of the alternative energy in using the carports to house the alternative energy, and understand why the panels are there versus on the historic building.
Well, they can't be on the historic building for anyone else that didn't know that. That wasn't an option, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, that sounds very fair. We'll pull all those details together. We'll get you a rendering that shows the treatment. I'll get a cut sheet on the footings and the paint color. So we'll be happy to get that back to you.
Let's just go in order. Polly, is there anything else you can give them you'd like to see for clarification?
Yeah, one thing I want to clarify is that I'm not sure what I see the sandstone footings, and then the column is painted maybe the color of the trim that you have the windows in the building, not necessarily paint those the sandstone color, so that there's, I think you know what I mean, Ika. I can see you shaking your head. Yeah, so it has the same kind of color scheme, the stone, and then the paint of the trim, which is probably like a dark brown or something, from what I'm remembering. I just wanted to be clear on that color scheme, which would make it not all look the same, but it would have some distinction to it as well.
Right.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patty. Go ahead.
Totally agree with what you and Mike decided. To see a rendering with the final color selection, the brownstone footings, the structure in which these solar panels will be installed. Yes.
Okay, and Kate? Anything you want them to bring to us, though, as far as samples or visual images?
I mean, just what we were talking about, I'd like to see it rendered in the darker color with the footing, with the sandstone, because that's kind of what I was picturing when I was saying I think that the paint color matters. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we're all unified, pushing forward. Every party here. So,
hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. Of the revised rendering, did they say they would put it in the more exact location too?
Oh, that's an excellent point. No, that wasn't discussed, but yeah, that would be preferred. You go, Jackie. Sorry.
Sorry.
Mark and Ika, can you do that when you do your rendering or
Absolutely.
the re-rendering?
Absolutely.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. So, excuse my naivety, but Mike, how do we table something for the next meeting? Do we vote or do we just table it?
You take a motion to continue the application to the next meeting in 2 weeks on Monday, October, don't judge, 5th at 5:30 p.m.
Okay, does someone want to make that motion or I can?
I'll make the motion to table the application until the 5th of October at 5:30.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mark and Nika. I'm sorry we couldn't do it all in one shot, but
Everything's an evolution. It's good.
Yep, that's good. Mike, quick question. This doesn't change whether we go to zoning at 7?
Yeah, just zoning will act on the application until you get the positive referral from DRB. I'll report to zoning that they continue the hearing. You can get the night off. So
Okay.
We'll get you just before DRB and zoning on the 5th.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
All
right. Thanks for your input, folks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, let's continue on, finish up our meeting. The only other item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from July 6th, 2020. Did everyone have the opportunity to see these minutes?
Yes.
And did anyone find any clarifications? So I'm going with no.
I had one thought. Hold on. I got to pull it up. Sorry.
Mike, do you know while we're waiting where this not 894 Hop Meadow Street site redevelopment is? Are they coming back to us?
Good question. I haven't heard from them since your meeting.
We weren't that mean. We did give them a lot of information, though. I hope they can take it in.
I was just going to say you did give them a lot of things to consider. So I'm sure that they have a good team working on that application, and they're probably considering their options on how to address your comments in full. So it's going to take them a little bit of while.
I found my location of my comment. Line 71. I said about the lack of green space on the property and that it may overpower surrounding buildings. I'm thinking it may what I intended to say was that the whole project would overpower surrounding properties, not meaning just buildings, but other green space, just the whole neighborhood and not just buildings.
So could we just say may overpower the surroundings?
Yeah, so the surroundings, that would be good.
And that way it's a typo instead of rewriting the actual.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want, it's not just buildings, it's the whole surroundings. That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other corrections? Okay, with that, that one correction, would someone like a motion to accept as presented? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of July 6, 2020 with the exception that we do line 71 over. And Anka, I believe that was a second. Is that correct?
I second it, yes.
Holly and Kate, are you both in agreement?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
That's unanimous. We accept those minutes. Without further ado, I guess it's time to adjourn. Would someone else like to make a motion?
Steve, I just want to, just one little thing. So next month, the next meeting, we're going to have this continued application, and I expect there'll be 2 more applications that will be submitted for new projects. One is in the center. It's a pretty large project, and the other is in another location in the town, not in the center. Another large new commercial development.
Hooray, it's a lot going on in Simsbury, finally.
So you're going to have a busy meeting next in 2 weeks.
So can we all commit to that? I can make it. I'm 99% sure, and actually I'll just verify that right now. But can you guys as well, because it's pretty much us 4.
Do you think we'll still be in Zoom, or do you?
We will still be in Zoom for the foreseeable future.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for the heads up. I will save time. Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
In fairness to those applicants, I know that both of them will have a team of architects with them. I just want to make sure we have a quorum for them when they show up.
Yep, I'll be here.
Okay, that's the 4 of us. Barring any catastrophe, we'll be here. I shouldn't even say that this year.
Yeah, shush.
Way to go, Steve. Thanks for jinxing us.
All right, so with that being said, I think I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Kate, are you okay?
Second.
On the light there? What's going on?
I know, because it's bothering me.
All right, lights out. All
If you
right.
want it on, it's on.
Who wants to second the motion to adjourn?
Me, second.
Okay, and Kate and Anka, are you in favor?
Yep.
Yes.
Then it's unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you all for making it tonight. Look
See you
forward
in
to
2 weeks.
October 5th.
Thank
All right.
you.